The boss of an English port says more than 20 casualties have been brought ashore after a collision between an oil tanker and a cargo ship in the North Sea. According to Associated Press, Martyn Boyers, chief executive of the Port of Grimsby East, said 13 casualties were brought in on a Windcat 33 vessel, followed by another 10 on a harbor pilot boat. He said some crew were still unaccounted for. An oil tanker and a cargo ship collided off the coast of eastern England Monday, setting both vessels on fire and triggering a major rescue operation, emergency services said. Britain's Maritime and Coastguard Agency said several lifeboats and a Coast Guard rescue helicopter were dispatched to the scene in the North Sea, along with a Coast Guard plane and nearby vessels with firefighting capability. The RNLI Lifeboat Agency said there were reports that a number of people had abandoned the vessels following a collision and there were fires on both ships. It said 3 lifeboats were working on search and rescue at the scene alongside the Coast Guard. Video footage aired by the BBC and apparently filmed from a nearby vessel showed thick black smoke pouring from both ships. The tanker, believed to be the US-flagged chemical and oil products carrier MV Stena Immaculate, was at anchor at the time after sailing from Greece, according to ship tracking site Vessel Finder. The cargo vessel, Portugal-flagged container ship Salong, was sailing from Grangemouth in Scotland to Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Coast Guards said the alarm was raised at 9:48 a.m. The site of the collision is off the coast of Hull, about 155 miles north of London.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces are expanding the use of unmanned naval boats in the war against the Russian Federation. The devices were used to deliver aerial drones deep into the enemy's rear. Footage of this combined operation was published by Spilnota Stanenko. The operation was carried out jointly by the Ukrainian Navy and the Security Service of Ukraine. The location of the attack is not named. It is only known that it was the deep rear of the enemy. 2 anti-aircraft missile systems of the Russian armed forces were destroyed. Naval drone carriers delivered FPV drones by sea to the operation site, and then they destroyed the Strela 10 and OSA AKM air defense systems, the resource reported. He specified that drones donated by Ukrainians took part in the operation. It should be noted that the Ukrainian Defense Forces began using unmanned naval boats to transport aerial drones to the site of operations in late 2024. The first public demonstration of this tactic was the strike on gas platforms in the Black Sea, which the Russian Federation used for military purposes. Recall on December the 31st, a Ukrainian naval drone destroyed a Russian Mi-8 helicopter for the first time using missiles launched from the unmanned craft. 2 days later, Ukraine managed to destroy another helicopter and damage a third using the same Magura V5 vessel. It was first reported in May that Ukraine was adding late 1980s Soviet anti-aircraft missiles to drones. This is part of the sustained burst of drone innovation since the war began 3 years ago, including anti-trench thermite drones, shotgun-equipped anti-drone UAVs, fiber optic drones designed to counter electronic warfare, and AI-enabled drones for targeting assistance. Most recently, the Ukrainian Navy launched a series of deep strikes behind enemy lines, employing innovative tactics, underlining drone warfare's rapid evolution. On January the 5th, Ukrainian unmanned surface vessels deployed kamikaze drones from the Black Sea to target Russian Pantsir S-1 air defense systems in Kherson Oblast, valued at $15 million to $20 million a unit. The strikes, which hit Russian positions near Privilya, represent one of Ukraine's most imaginative operations in recent times, highlighting its ability to challenge Russian defenses far from the front lines and to strike targets from unexpected directions. These USVs have evolved beyond their early use as kamikaze seaboats. They have now evolved into mobile drone launch platforms. Recent upgrades allow them to carry and deploy aerial drones, as Ukraine showed in December when it heavily damaged Russian-controlled gas platforms in the Black Sea. The strikes also add to the Ukrainian Navy's growing arsenal of land strike capabilities. Furthermore, this gives Ukraine the opportunity to more freely roam the Black Sea, as Russia can no longer assume its aircraft are free to operate against drones. It also means that Ukraine will continue to further target Crimea to systematically weaken Russia's advanced military assets. The United States, having decided to end its support for Ukraine, cannot simply turn off the Ukrainian Air Force's US-designed F-16 fighters. But the Trump administration has cut off vital support for their jamming capabilities, which could deprive the Ukrainian Air Force of a critical air countermeasure. However, as Forbes analyst David Axe writes, the Ukrainians are not powerless and can shift the burden of air jamming onto the French Dassault Mirage 2000 fighters. As Axe points out, the Ukrainian Air Force is taking full advantage of the ability of F-16s equipped with AN/ALQ-131 pods to flood Russian radar screens with electronic noise. They act as flying air defenses with advanced missile warning technology, notes the conflict intelligence team. But the Russian Air Force can circumvent the jamming by reprogramming its radars to different frequencies. As Axe points out, while the Biden Air Force was able to keep up with the Russian adaptation by constantly tweaking the AN/ALQ-131 frequencies under Trump, Ukrainian pilots are not receiving updates, and the programs could soon become obsolete. However, France's Mirage 2000s are equipped with their own powerful jammers, and the Americans are not involved in their programming, the analyst notes. The Mirage 2000 5F, currently in service with the French Air Force, flies with a combination of the Servile Radar Warning Receiver, Sabre Jammer, and Eclair Flare Dispenser. This system was cutting edge in the 1980s, but within a generation it was falling behind. Recognizing this weakness and understanding the seriousness of the Russian missile threat over Ukraine, the French Ministry of Defense promised to install new electronic countermeasures on the Mirage 2000s before handing them over to Ukraine. The ministry probably had in mind the predominantly analog integrated countermeasures Suite Mark II or the all-digital integrated countermeasures Suite Mark III, Axe notes. Either system is an improvement over the older system and a potential replacement for the AN/ALQ-131, as the American pods lag behind the Russian adaptation. The French are firm allies of Ukraine and are willing to reprogram the jammers if necessary. In the longer term, the Ukrainians could refit their F-16s with non-American electronic countermeasures, Axe notes. But that could take time and money that Ukraine cannot afford. In February, French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu announced that Ukraine had received the first Mirage 2000 5F fighters. And on the night of March the 7th, French Mirage fighters took part for the first time in repelling a Russian attack and shot down Russian missiles.